Hey guys, it's been a while since I got a chance to work on this. Had some other projects get in the way. But where we finished up last time was we got the master cylinder and the brake booster in. We got the proportioning valve in here the way it needs to go with the correct bracket. We got the lines in here. I also threw the wheel wells in so that we know where we have to route the lines around to make sure we have proper clearance and everything. So let me show you guys what we're working on. So as you can see, we still have tons of clearance in here. We got the bracket and everything installed. We know where the wheel wells are going to come out. So we're going to start with this first driver's side brake line, and basically we're picking up this output right here. So the way these work out, it's two front outs and a rear out in the back. So we're going to go driver's side here, down around the lower controller, make sure we clear that and pick up that bracket. And then we're going to take the passenger side down into the frame rail again, and we're going to follow the traditional path that goes along the front cross member here and over out to the other side. You can also do it if you don't have a lift. It's easier to run it around the back and secure it to the firewall. You can do that, but since we have the lift, I'm just going to go ahead and put it in the stock location. And then obviously we'll have the rear out. And you have to make a choice on what diameter you want the rear outline to be. Typically it's larger than the fronts because it's taken this, the single outlet to dual outlets in the back. So I'll show you guys how to deal with that. But I'll show you on this first driver's side front kind of what the process is. It's really simple, especially with these copper nickel brake lines that I've got. It's real easy to bend by hand, and then we'll take you through the rest of it. So let's get going. So the best way to start is to get an overall idea of how long the brake line is going to need to be. And there's a bunch of different ways you can do this. You could use a tape measure like this. You could use a flexible tape measure. You could use welding rod to bend it in the way you need it and cut it to length. You could use any number of things. For me, I'm just going to get a rough length with the tape measure and give me a good idea of how much line I'm going to need, and then we'll work it from there. So the best thing you can do is figure out how you want to run this stuff before you start bending the line. So think about the stuff you want clearance from. So obviously we might need to pull this steering shaft out later. When we replace it with a collapsible one, we're going to want to be able to get in and change spark plugs. So it'd be nice if we had more clearance around here. So the best way to do this might be to come down about here, run a 90 back, tie into the firewall with a bracket, and then come down and follow the frame around. That'll give us a lot of nice clearance and keep everything up kind of tight. So I think that's what we'll do instead. So we'll cut our line quite a bit longer. So they make all kinds of tubing straighteners. I got this one from Brake Quip. It's really just a way of running through a bunch of straight line, or running through the coiled line, because it usually comes in a coil, and getting something straight so that you can work with it. And, kind of goes much like you'd think. You just kind of run it back and forth until you get it straight enough for what you're working for. They have a bunch of different kinds of these. I like the bench mounted kind. Eastwood has one that's like handheld, and you just run it down the line. But for me, I just need something straight enough to start working with. And this stuff's easy to move by hand, so we'll get it straightened out from the coil and give us a good solid point to start working with. And then I just use a small brake cutter like this. I like this one because it's small enough to get into some tight spaces. Now that we got a nice straight piece of line to work with, we can start doing our flaring. Like I said earlier, I like this Eastwood double flaring tool that I have. They make one that's on car as well. I just kind of prefer this one for what I typically do. And it comes with all the necessary adapters and fittings to do just about any style fitting you'd like to do. As you can see, I've used this thing quite a bit. It's nice, it's labeled, tells you which one to start with. Obviously go with number 1, the OP setting, and then depending on which size line you're using, it tells you right in here. So they even have this nice OP1 or OP0 where you can use this to set the correct depth for the line. So I'll show you guys how this works here. So once we have our line nice and straight, the first thing we want to do is deburr it. So I have this Eastwood deburring tool. I know it sounds like I'm really pimping Eastwood. It's just where I decided to get it at the time. So this one cleans out the inside diameter, and this one is for cleaning out the outside diameter. So you kind of jam it in here, run the deburring tool around to clean up the inside so you get a nice good flare. Like I said, it's easy to do with these copper nickel lines, are nice and soft. So that'll clean up the inside. And then we go ahead and clean up the outside. As you can see now, we have a nice clean surface to make our flare with. And then it's pretty straightforward. You make sure you get the right adapter for the size line. So this is 3/16 line, so this is what we're going to do. And this is going to give you a dimple basically for the first operation on it, and then the flare. First operation is the dimple. So we'll set the line in here, turn this back over to 0. And I like to stick it out a little bit past the edge here, snug it down some, make sure everything's set to the correct depth, and then we'll do this first OP1 operation for 3/16 line. Push it until it bottoms out. Go ahead, take it out, and make sure, so you got to flip the die over to do the second operation. So see how everything's dimpled here now. Now we're going to flip it over to do the flare. And they have this dimple on the inside, so you know for the second one to match it up. And then sort of the same thing, we'll flip it back over here to the setting to make sure we have the depth correct. Go ahead and snug it down. And now we're looking to do that OP2 operation for 3/16. Again, push it until it bottoms out. It's as simple as that. Now you got a nice double flare that won't have any leaks. And then of course, as always, make sure you get your fitting on there. It doesn't matter on this particular one because we haven't flared the other end yet, but you can see that makes a nice leak-free seal. So we'll go ahead and throw this on the car. So now we get into why I kind of like this brake line so much. So you can go out and get the pre-bent stuff, and that's perfectly fine. You know, that'll put it right where the OEM stuff would most of the time, and there's plenty of good companies that do that. But when you make your own lines, you sort of have the freedom to do whatever you need to. So if you want your lines to look different, or to route different, or to clearance around something else, you sort of have the freedom to do that. So that's kind of why I prefer to do it this way. And then the nice thing about this stuff is you can use one of these tubing benders, you know, to bend your angles. If you want to do that to make it more precise, you can bend this stuff by hand. You know, it's pretty simple. You know, you don't really need a straight edge to do it on. You just 2 thumbs, you can bend it. So it kind of gives you that freedom to put stuff the way that you want it to go. So you can make your car exactly what you want it to be. So this first bend, I'm going to make kind of close. I would like to be able to have the lines sort of, you know, over top of each other. So we need to come down a little bit to do that. So this first line, I probably need to bend it, you know, a little bit longer than I would normally. We got about 2.5 inches to the fender well. We want about 1/2 inch of clearance roughly. So I'll make my first bend about 2 inches down from there. And you know, it doesn't have to be, it can be as precise and as you want it to be. So don't feel like you have to do it the way I just did it or the way anybody else does it. It's your car. You can do it the way that you want. Sort of like the J.G. Wentworth commercial, right? It's your money, use it when you need it. So see, I just bent that with my thumbs. Got a nice, you know, a little bit more than a 90. I can take that out. I don't have to worry about kinking it. The only thing I will say is this stuff is, you know, obviously flexible enough to bend by hand. So if you need to take a little bit out or to change a bend, you're going to have to be careful and hold it just right so that you don't put another bend somewhere else that you don't want it. And then from here, we're roughly 13 inches back to the firewall. So we'll try to get it as close as we can. And make sure you're keeping in mind your bends here so you don't bend the wrong way. A lot of guys will start off doing this with a coat hanger to make a template. I should do that, but I didn't, so there's that. So you can get an idea of what I'm going for here. I want to give myself lots of clearance around the fender well, so I have room to move that around, and I don't have a vibration, but I want to come back and pick up, you know, the firewall and make some kind of bracket here to hold my lines. Right about here, basically. And then, you know, come in at an angle, come back down, pick up the frame, follow the frame around, and come back out to the wheel well. So we got the driver's side in. As I showed you, the stuff's really easy to bend. Now we're going to go ahead and do the run to the passenger side. I need about 85 inches or so to give me some slack to get over there. So say a few more times. That'd be good. So what we're going to do for the passenger side is we're going to run it along the traditional route. So we'll come up here where we have the second front out, and we're going to follow this same line, bring it around up here, and we're going to come across the cross member in the stock location. That way I can pick up these original mounts, and then we'll take it up over the frame rail and drop it right in here. So go ahead and get started. So I just want to show you guys real quick. So I went to Inline Tube for this, and they send you 2 rolls. You can get any kind of combination you want. I went with 3/16, it's about 25 feet, and then 1/4 inch, and they send you all the fittings and everything you need too. So it's really easy, one-stop shop. It's like $48 for this whole kit instead of, you know, a couple $100 for a pre-bent brake line setup. So this is a really nice setup. That's why one of the, you know, reasons I like going this way. So let's go ahead and throw all this stuff on the car. All right, guys, well, that's it. It's pretty much that simple. As you can see, I routed them down in there so I could have plenty of clearance later on to do a 6-speed manual conversion on this, because the slave cylinder is going to need to go in there with all the hydraulic lines. I still have to do some brackets to mount them to the frame rail up here, but you can see I got to straighten these lines up a little bit. Obviously, I'll do some of that, clean the rest of that sticker off, but I'm kind of happy with the way these routed. I need to clearance around the inner wheel well a little bit better and straighten these lines up so they look a little bit prettier. And then I will probably, scuff them up a little bit and maybe put some clear coat on them just so they last a little bit longer and keep that nice look. But that's all there is to it. It's pretty simple and straightforward. It's certainly something you can try on your own and do this in a weekend. The lift helps immensely. This didn't take me more than a few hours to do start to finish. I started today at about 6 o'clock. It's almost 8 o'clock now, and I was able to do the passenger side and all the way to the rear. I still need to do the axle lines, but we'll wait and do that once we have the new rubber line that goes from the rear axle up to the frame. And then we'll want to replace these rubber lines up here as well, just to make sure that they're good. But really, again, straightforward, simple to do. I hope you guys try it on your own. If you have any questions or tips or tricks or something you guys do differently, please feel free to let us know. And I really appreciate you guys watching. Thanks a lot.